Good afternoon, everybody. It's February 22nd, 2016, and this is the meeting of the Public Works and Finance Committee. I have Walter Steed on council to my right, Catherine Bonzo, council on my left. I'm Art Betke, and amazingly smaller, instead of Gary Reedner, we have Jen Pepner representing the city. So, first up is the approval of the February 8th meeting minutes.
And I'm good with them.
As am I.
And they're passed. Next is an amendment to the wireless communication facility agreement starring Jesse Flowers.
Good afternoon.
Good day.
All right. The city has been approached by AT&T. They'd like to add 3 more antennas on top, or not on top, but on the side of one of our water tanks to improve coverage and provide additional speed for their subscribers. We've already done a review with engineering on the plans. They are approved and as presented, so that we have a set of what the install will be instead of the questioning of yes, we're approving it, and then going through the plan review process. We changed that order up this time to streamline a couple of questions that happened last time we did an amendment for more antennas, or we had some questions for their as-built and proposals. Legal department has reviewed the proposal. It meets their standards, and it's additional revenue we did not budget for this year. So staff recommendation is we approve it and say thank you very much.
Yeah, I read through everything, so I was wondering, do you want to put it on the consent agenda?
What do you think, Walter?
Jesse, do you have the site plan on your iPad there that they submitted to us?
Just the one that was attached to.
The one,
Yeah.
It shows a property line around the water tank in what appears to be close to a square. And then it shows a property line around all of that, which is more like a state of something, rectangle of sorts.
Mm-hmm. The inner square is actually the fenced area around the water tank.
Okay. So that's not really a property line.
No, that's more of the.
That's a fenced area around the tank.
Correct.
And the outer property line is what the city owns.
Yes, as far as I can understand and read it.
Okay, no, that makes more sense. And if I may?
You may.
The information you sent me this morning on inquiry shows that they're currently paying $1,444 per antenna per year at 9 antennas for $13,000.
Sounds about right.
Sound about right? And we're adding 3 more for $2,700, which is for $900 apiece.
The part of the issue we have is our co-location contracts were put in place quite a while ago, and the rate that we are charging does not necessarily keep up with what the going market rate is, so we're trying to adjust to more of a market rate for the new additions compared to the grandfathered rate of the existing antennas.
So we've been charging too much?
Too little. This one we're increasing. The last time we did Amendment 2, the increase was $150 a month based on a prorated per antenna count. This time we're increasing it by $600 a month.
Well, my point is that it appears, if I'm understanding what we're doing and my simple math is correct, is that we're charging less per antenna with the additional 3 than we're currently charging for the existing antennas that are already up there.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood, but yeah, to some extent that's correct, but there's additional infrastructure on the ground for their vault and their storage, which is part of what's spaced out of that, because that's not expanding. This enhancement's going into the exact.
They're putting the box inside
in their existing
area they've
footprint.
already got.
Correct.
Okay. So you're comfortable with the rate subject to a review of what we're charging everybody versus the market?
Yes.
Okay.
I am good with it, too. So shall we put it on consent?
Works for me.
On the consent. Thank you,
Right,
Jesse.
thank you very much.
Thank you for the additional revenue.
Hey.
Next up, roll cart usage and storage, Tim Davis. Mr. Tim,
Good afternoon.
good day.
There has been some concerns about the warnings that are stamped on the new roll carts, the 65-gallon, 95-gallon carts, as well as the existing solid waste 65 and 95-gallon carts, as we discussed at the last Public Works Finance meeting on February 8th. that discussion led to staff being asked to craft a statement with regards to that safety warning and try to get some further education out there to the public. Fire Chief Brian Nickerson and Fire Marshal Joe Williams have put together a letter with legal, or not a letter, but a statement with regards to that. That is in your packet. I can go ahead and read that
Yes, please.
statement if you'd like. I have to get the readers on it.
For the benefit of people on TV who
Sure.
might not have a copy.
A message from Moscow Volunteer Fire Department, Fire Chief, and Fire Marshal. The City of Moscow has received several questions concerning the warning on the new recycling roll carts and where they can be placed. These warnings are intended to provide notice to users the new roll carts can be a fire hazard if used inappropriately. Every year, fires are started with someone carelessly scoops ashes containing glowing ambers in garbage and recycling roll carts. If hot ashes, cinders, smoldering coals, or greasy or oily materials subject to spontaneous combustion are placed in these carts, the container could melt or ignite. It is also recommended that a safe distance be maintained from ignition sources such as luminaries, heaters, flame-producing devices, and other combustible materials. When the garbage and recycling roll carts are used for their intended purpose, they are safe and can be stored near homes and in garages. Please call the Moscow Volunteer Fire Department if you have any questions regarding the safe use of garbage or recycle roll carts. Then it says Moscow Volunteer Fire Department Brian Nickerson, Moscow Fire Department Fire Marshal Joe Williams.
Walter, I know you have something.
I have a couple of proposed wording tweaks that I gave a copy to Joe and to Tim a moment ago to look at. My question had to do with adding a little more specificity to exactly which containers we're talking about, that it's both garbage and recycle. The recycle, apparently these have been on the garbage containers all the way along and nobody said anything. It was the recycles that got everybody's attention, and then found out it was on both garbage and recycle and both 65s and 95s. So the legislative changes that I've made there point out the fact that we're talking about the quote for outdoor use only verbiage on the cart that's stamped there now, the fact that it applies to the new 65 and 95 gallon garbage and recycling roll carts, and then down here, Jen, and then down in the last paragraph, next to last paragraph, I underlined are used for their intended purpose, and then reiterated that all sizes can be stored near homes or in garages. I don't think I did, and I didn't intend to change the message, just to add some further clarification to people exactly what we're talking about.
Any
So
thoughts,
and
Tim?
I've got a question for Tim and Joe as to what they think about it.
I had the same kind of wordsmithing that Walter was talking about, and instead of, it's the word, well, luminaries, we just have to put lights, I think, for people, unfortunately, if that's too big, but intended and maybe have designated. I think intended can be misconstrued to give
Where
leeway.
are you?
Which in the part you underlined, it said are used for
Okay.
intended purpose, but I thought maybe designated use. They have a particular use. It's quite specific, and so I thought maybe it'd be better to have that they're for their specific purpose. It's not what we intend. I may intend, a lot of things, but what I'm actually supposed to do is different. So I thought that would be a place to clear it
So
up.
you would change that to what?
I thought designated or something.
Designated purpose?
Yeah. Or specific, whatever it is that makes it so that it's clear. Now, I might intend something different. There's not going to be any confusion. And I like what Walter added for outdoor use only on their things. And I think even what Walter said about that this message has already been on the other containers,
Garbage bins.
put that in here too. You know, it's not like it's not new. It's been out there. And
To
so
try to clear up all the confusion
Yeah.
that we've got.
Bring some unity to the whole discussion.
yeah.
And personally, I would be remiss if I didn't toss in a wordsmith myself. First line of the second paragraph, every year fires are started when someone carelessly scoops ashes containing glowing embers into. So there I've done my due diligence as well.
No, but I appreciate that you gave an example. I think that that's a necessary piece that makes people think, oh, yeah, that's right, Uncle Bob did that, you know, that whole thing. So I think it helps. Oh, you can't do that. And mine was the luminaries, and I know that you might mean lights, but did you mean anything that creates light? So when you say luminaries, what do you mean?
Well, I took that right from the fire code.
The code? So when in the code, what does it mean?
Well, I didn't look for a definition of it, but I'm sure it means, you know, like heat lamps. I mean, there's a lot of people that have, and I'm thinking this is what this means, but
I think it could be solved with just luminaries, parenthesis, lights,
Yeah.
close
Or
parenthesis.
heating element?
illuminate things that would illuminate the room. You know, there's a lot of these small lights that you have for when you're working in a garage that get really, really hot.
Halogen
you know.
Yeah,
lights.
and then you hook them onto things and stuff like that.
Right,
Yeah.
and if you hook something onto there and the back gets hot enough, and this, I mean, this warning is for any of these carts, small, even the smaller ones. So,
Yep.
you know, that's just what you have to
Right,
be
and
careful
so,
of.
yeah, if you would just, I guess, put in parentheses, anything used to light,
And if you'd like, I can
area
get a
or something.
definition from the fire code on luminaries. And
yeah, that would be good. And then what
Put that
also,
in.
we were saying that this has already been printed before in the very first thing, so in the first paragraph, if you could put maybe in the second sentence, 65, you know, where Walter cleared up 65 and 95 gallon garbage and recycling roll carts, and where they can be placed. This warning has been on all containers issued by the city for the past however many years.
It hadn't been on all of them.
Well, however long you've been doing it. I guess,
You want the time?
do you have the time?
I know, do you want the length of time it's been on there? Is that what you're talking
Yeah, I
about?
guess what I'm trying to say is, like, this isn't new information. This is continuing education for what we have. But I don't know when it is.
So I kind of like the terseness of it all. It kind of gets to the point. There it is, and off you go. Jen?
Yeah, and we could also adapt this to use on our social media outreach and some other pieces as well. So one thing we always do look at is that luminaires, how do we take the fire code or the ordinance or whatever and put it into that layman's language? So I think that's a good point. We can tweak that a bit. And make a note of what's really intended there so people will know what it means to them.
So how are we going to get the message out?
They are getting ready to come out with the spring Talking Trash newsletter, which I have requested a front page blocked in area, which all customers should receive in the mail. Again, we have some social media outlets that we can tap through the city and get that on the website as well.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a note sent over to the Daily News people, too.
A media release would also be
Do a
included.
press release
Yes.
and make the statement and
Well, 106.1's been playing that the recycle roll carts have been out. That's been playing, I know in the mornings I've been hearing it. So I don't know how much airtime you bought.
that was probably purchased by LSI. They've been doing the advertising on the papers.
On the,
and
oh,
radio.
okay, they did
Yeah.
it. Can you give them any additional pieces of
I
information?
can speak with Andy and see what we can do there
Oh,
and see
okay.
how much more they're planning on advertising it.
Yeah. Because they've kept to the basic information, and I kind of expected, since it's almost been a month since the roll carts have been out, that as a patron, actually, I kind of expected more information, like, wow, this has been going great. Now you're recycling this much. I kind of expect an update. So that would be helpful, too.
Well, I've called the Daily News and requested that they interview Tim so that he would have an opportunity to do that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
they have not seen fit to do so. In fact, I've talked to the editor, and I've sent him an email to remind him, but it hadn't happened.
The numbers are very encouraging, although it's still early yet. And as we get a little more history and
Yeah.
things kind of playing out, we're going to have a better idea, a month or two down the road. But still, I was a little disappointed myself that they haven't come to, I guess it wasn't a big enough story.
Yeah. Well, it is. It will be when it's successful. So
And
we'll just-
it's going to
yeah.
be.
So good. So I think this one, by way of PRing, should probably go on regular agenda.
More coverage.
Exactly right.
Yeah, and if it's okay with the other committee members, if y'all will incorporate the changes and/or look at the question about luminaires, and bring it back to us as you see fit.
You got it.
Okay. Under regular council, just so we can talk about it some more.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing for.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, on we go to reports. And first up is an update on the Idaho Viva Group proposal status. Our very own Rod Hall.
Good afternoon, councilors. Last administrative committee meeting on February 8th, city supervisor presented a proposal on an Idaho group, the Voluntary Employee Benefit Association group proposal, talking about trying to find the Health Reimbursement Association funding that we are working on. Currently, we pay through a Washington group. There is an Idaho group that's being spearheaded by JH Benefits that's trying to get this started in Idaho, so Idaho employers would have more control over it. We're in the middle of the processes of reviewing the current one with Washington and also the proposal with the Idaho one to see what the differences are. We're just in the middle of the review. Just thought I would give an update on where we were, and we're just trying to assess whether the obligations with the new one would be greater than the current obligations we are with Washington one, and what risks there would be to if we do switch to the Idaho group.
So is there a date by which we have to decide, especially relative to committing to next year's health benefits package?
Well, with this Idaho group, we were approached to be a founding member, or one of the initial members of it, with no obligation to actually join the group. So they were looking for a sponsor to the agreement, and they were going through the process. They have the Attorney General of this and the Insurance Department look at those. So there wouldn't be any commitment, but they wanted us, other than to be the initial founding members. We just don't know if we really want to do that yet. They wanted to have that done, I think, by mid-March, so they're trying to get on it sooner.
That's pretty quick.
And that's why we've expedited the review process. We just don't have all our answers yet.
And for budgeting purposes, that would put us well ahead of the schedule for looking at next year as well. So.
Okay, good.
I was remiss and didn't realize this was down at the bottom of the sheet in terms of an update. When I listened to this at Administrative Committee 2 weeks ago, I created something of a list of questions in my mind about it. I will email those to you if you don't mind, if you're the one that's running this. I heard the gentleman that made the presentation pushing for us to say yes right away. I'm not so, I believe that a sponsorship is an endorsement, and to be a little careful about do we jump even if we don't commit is a question we need to ask ourselves. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, I just don't know enough about it.
Yep. So overall, I think it has to be to the benefit of the cities and the employees before we do anything. So more info, I guess, is the way to go.
Just to bring it in state is a reason, but to me, not necessarily a overriding reason.
No, so you can send those to me.
I will.
And I'm working on it with also the Human Resource Director.
Okay?
That sounds good.
Okay. So, next up, Rod again, is the Southeast Moscow Sewer District update.
Again, thank you.
Que pasa?
Just kind of give an update on where we are. that the City of Moscow has been providing sanitary sewer services and treatment services to the Southeast Moscow Water and Sewer District since 1980. We've been working for the last couple of years now, I think, on the new contract, but every time we get close, something else comes up, so some questions come in. Last April, we had a long workshop to discuss what are some of the options, and a lot of information and issues were raised and addressed. And at that particular time, it was determined that both bodies wanted to move forward with renewing the contract. We did a workshop after we redid the contract. We had a few questions, and council gave us some direction on what they wanted in the contract. And then, I can't remember what committee meeting, I think it was the Public Works Finance Committee in November. They requested the other workshop that we just recently had on February 4th. We were moving forward with the contract, and then my understanding is that the board for the Southeast Moscow Water and Sewer District had some other issues that they wanted to look at, and they were going to seek legal counsel and see if there was any other options. So right now, we don't know exactly where that's going to go, but it may come back up. People may want to see what could happen if the Moscow Water and Sewer District was to just go away, what would happen. And just my opinion, right now they're currently hooked up to sewers or city services, and the city's borders on them. So if they didn't exist, annexation would always be a possibility.
But not a necessity.
Not a necessity.
My understanding is
No.
state law has changed in the last couple of years, that it's taken out any
Involuntary.
linkage between utility service and annexation.
It is, but there was a date on that. I think it was 2008. If you were hooked up to city services prior to that, then I think there's the implied consent. If you hooked up after 2008, then that's where you would have the question.
But the council doesn't have to annex them.
It does
because
not.
we're
That's just
serving.
saying one of the issues. What would you do, or double the rates, or whatever that's normally the current city policy is. There's just a lot of other issues that are going to be raised.
So we're not there yet.
We're not there yet, and we're back to almost like where we were in October.
So when it is where it is right now, everything's in limbo, all the payments that.
No. We're going.
Right.
No, we have a
Operating.
contract. We have a continuing
Right.
contract. We keep renewing, doing amendments. This current contract goes through the end of July of this year.
So the good thing was the workshop then spurred them into maybe thinking differently, I felt like, than they had before.
Well, no.
Especially because I remember the mayor talking at the workshop about how eventually it would probably go away. So do you think it gave them some, information to think, well, if that's what's going to happen, maybe that's what we should do?
Well, I think that could be possible. I have no idea, but I can tell you what, I'm not really inclined to have another workshop.
No,
After all
no,
the talks and
No.
gatherings and things, I'm done with that because, what I'm thinking I can't say, so I'll give you the correct version of it. They either need to get with the program and get with us on this and get this contract signed, or dissolve themselves if that's what they wish to do, but they need to make a decision within their internal group.
Yeah,
That's how I see it. But I'm not in favor of another workshop.
no.
Well, Mayor, if I may.
Man,
the
we
reason-
hammered.
The reason for the last workshop was this committee, when presented with a draft, or the latest at that moment draft, had a lot of questions about some of the financial manipulating of charging who, how, when, why, and felt that to do a workshop would help clarify that, which I think it may have. I think we
so,
got
too.
through that.
Well, and I don't have, Walter, I'm not saying I had a problem with that. What I'm saying is we've had enough workshops. I think we beat every dead horse we possibly could about this thing for the last year and a half. We need to move on.
I don't know anybody up here that's
Right.
proposing a workshop.
So anyway, I just thought I'd come up and share that.
No, we weren't going to
point
push
of-
it back into
Don't go
workshop. Yeah.
Don't leave
Yeah,
yet, Bill.
don't
You
worry,
might as well
don't worry.
stay for another minute.
Yeah.
Rod?
Back in October, what came out of that workshop is some of the needs that the district needs, where they were lacking on, in case they needed to have contracts reviewed. We put, said that I would try to help them as I could, or the city attorney for Moscow would do that. But then at some point, there's going to be a conflict. So there was some revenue that they needed, and trying to make it fair. And that's some of the issues that we addressed in the contract as we were reconstituting it. And I think that was the reason for the workshop, to explain what those changes were, to try to meet their needs, as well as the city's needs.
And much like Bill, not in favor of another workshop, I'm also not really in favor of endless continuances of the existing contract, continuing amendment after amendment after amendment, just to keep the thing rolling. I'd like
Yeah.
to see this come to a conclusion before July, when this amendment runs out. So,
I think that's what we told Les under the previous amendment.
Yeah.
And to put him under the gun of getting the next draft done.
well, you can only go as fast as the other party goes.
Well, I think, really, in all reality, I think all parties would like to get the thing settled and get it settled right away. That's what I think. Don't you think that, Rod?
Yes, and they also got a couple new members on their board, and that we're getting up to speed. And right now there's a couple of people that are leaving, and so there actually is a little bit life there on that board than what was there before.
Well, and I think too, there's, because I had one person that used to be on that board, and he told me he was all for annexation. He's no longer on that board. So I don't know. They may have some mixed people out there who said, let's get the thing done and move on with life. I don't know. Because we only hear from like 3 people that's on the
Right.
board, and there's, 26 in that group that's out there?
No, there's 200 homes. How many homes?
I'm not talking about the Ridgeview and all that. I'm talking. Okay.
40s?
Yeah.
40 people that are hooked up to service,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
So see, maybe there's some of it okay with. I have no clue.
Okay.
Well, we'll see what happens. So, thanks for the update.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, the amendments that will never die. So, does anybody else
I
have
have
anything
nothing
for the
else.
good? Catherine?
I have nothing else.
Okay.
Just one quick reminder, it's a 5th Monday next week, so we don't have a council meeting next week. It'll be the following. So
A holiday has been declared.
there you go.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're adjourned.